I knew I needed someone else who's going to elevate me on the defensive end, but also at leadership. And I was like, who can do that? Skylar Diggins. I knew that from from back in the day. I needed that fight. She has this passion that I don't know many people play with that intensity all the time. I knew we needed that here.
She has a different level that she can get to when it comes to like preparing and like gaming and competing. And those conversations kind of like evolved into like this free agency for me at least.
She just wants to see the best for everyone, I think. And, you know, if there's something she needs to address, she'll pull me over aside at practice.
She's always been by my side.
Picture this. It's a normal day at Storm practice. The coaches are barking orders, players are running drills, but something's off. The atmosphere is tense, almost hostile. Now, fast forward to today. That same coaching staff, they're under investigation for mistreating players. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. But here's where it gets really interesting. Remember that game where Caitlin Clark seemed to get under the Storm player's skin? Yeah, that incident might be more important than we thought. Stay tuned as we unravel this mystery.
Fortunate time, I was able to see kind of both sides to it and see just how hard the players before me and that are playing with me have worked to get the W to where it is now.
Here we go, come on, come on.
She's allowed me to kind of go through my process of what my vision of leadership is and allowed me to have more say and have more leeway.
It just kind of all came into fruition from there, and I'm so happy that it did, and it's making for my favorite training camp so far.
The Seattle Storm season looked great on paper, a 25-15 record, that's solid. But something was off. It's like they were a fancy sports car with all the right parts, but the engine just wouldn't purr. Let's break it down. They had the talent. Jewel Lloyd was dropping buckets left and right. Ezzy Magbagor was swatting shots like flies, and don't even get me started on their new additions. Skylar Diggins-Smith and Neka Ogwumike. That's like adding nitro to an already souped-up ride. But when it came to the playoffs, it all fell apart. Remember that sweep against the Dallas Wings? It was ugly. The Storm looked lost, confused, like they'd forgotten how to play together. It was painful to watch. And it wasn't just the playoffs. Throughout the season, there were moments where things looked weird. Like that game against the Lynx where they blew a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. Or when they barely squeaked by the last place Phoenix Mercury. Something wasn't clicking. You know what's crazy? While all this was happening on the court, whispers started behind the scenes. Players looking uncomfortable during timeouts. Tense exchanges between coaches and stars. It was like watching a family dinner where everyone's mad, but trying to keep it together for the cameras. And then the bomb dropped. An investigation into player mistreatment? Yeah, you heard that right. The same coaches who were supposed to be leading this team to glory, they're now under the microscope for allegedly harassing and bullying players. It's wild. You've got this team that should be dominating, but instead, they're falling apart at the seams. And now, we're all left wondering, what's really going on with the Storm? Is this why they couldn't get it together on the court? How long has this been going on? And most importantly, what happens next? You think the on-court drama was intense? The Storm's coaching staff is in the eye of a hurricane that's been brewing longer than anyone realized. Let's talk about Noelle Quinn. She went from player to coach. Sounds like a dream, right? Quinn took over as head coach in 2021 and things looked good. I mean, the Storm even gave her a multi-year contract extension last September. That's a big vote of confidence. But here's where it gets messy. Allegations of harassment and bullying have surfaced. Yeah, you heard that right. The same coach who was supposed to lead this team to glory is now under fire. Can you imagine what practice might look like with these allegations hanging over everyone's heads? Picture this. Players looking over their shoulders, tension thick in the air, every interaction scrutinized. It's like walking on eggshells, but the eggshells are landmines. And it's not just a quick look into things. There's a full-blown law firm investigation going on. It's been 2 weeks already. That's not nothing, folks. That's serious business. You know what's even crazier? This might not just be about Quinn. Her coaching staff includes Perry Huang, Ebony Hoffman, and Pokey Chatman. They've all been with the team for a while. So now, we're all wondering, who else might be involved in this mess? Here's the kicker. Multiple players came forward with their experiences. This isn't just one person's story or a misunderstanding. It's a pattern, and that's what makes it so serious. The Women's National Basketball Players Association, WNBPA, is even involved now. They know about the investigation but aren't saying much. That just shows how sensitive this whole situation is. And all of this is happening while the Storm's trying to integrate new star players like Skylar Diggins-Smith and Nneka Ogwumike. Talk about bad timing. How are these new players feeling about walking into this Storm? It's got to be awkward, right? So now we're all left wondering, how deep does this go? Is this why the Storm couldn't get it together on the court? And most importantly, what happens next? The Storm's future is looking cloudier by the minute, and we're all waiting to see if the sun will break through or if this is just the beginning of an even bigger storm. While the Storm's management is in hot water, the players are caught between a rock and a hard place. Think about it. You've got stars like Jewel Lloyd, who just signed extensions. Now they're probably wondering if they made the right call. And what about the new additions? Did Skylar Diggins-Smith and Nneka Ogwumike just walk into a total mess? Let's talk about the players for a second. Imagine being in their shoes right now. You're trying to focus on your game, but there's this dark cloud hanging over the team. It's like trying to play basketball in the middle of a thunderstorm. And get this, 6 players are going to be free agents in January. That's a huge chunk of the team. You've got key players like Nneka Ogwumike, Mercedes Russell, and Sammy Whitcomb, who could just walk away when their contracts are up. And can you blame them? Who wants to stick around if things are as bad as they say? The big question is, will this investigation mess up who decides to stay with the Storm? Now, let's talk about Jewel Lloyd. She just signed a 2-year extension. She's supposed to be with the Storm until 2026. But you've got to wonder what's going through her head right now. Is she regretting that decision? Or is she thinking, I've got to stick it out and help fix this mess? And don't forget about Skylar Diggins-Smith and Nneka Ogwumike. These are big-time players who just joined the team. They probably thought they were stepping into a dream situation. Instead, they walked right into a storm of drama. How are they feeling about all this? You know what's really crazy? The team still has to play basketball through all of this. How do you build team chemistry when there's all this tension? It's like trying to bake a cake in a kitchen that's on fire. And here's the kicker. The WNBPA is involved now. That's when you know things are serious. They're not saying much, but you can bet they're watching everything that's going on. So now we're all left wondering, who's going to speak up next? Will more players come forward? Or will someone from the coaching staff break their silence? This story is far from over, and I've got a feeling it's only going to get wilder from here. You won't believe what went down in that game against the Fever. Remember when Caitlin Clark told the Storm players to stop crying? Yeah, that happened. Picture this. Clark's on fire, averaging 25.3 points and 12.7 assists in her last 3 games. She's crushing it like a seasoned pro, not a rookie. But then things got spicy. During the game, Clark bumped into Skylar Diggins-Smith. Now, was it an accident or something more? That's the million-dollar question. The Storm players weren't happy, that's for sure. Clark's response? She straight up told them to stop whining. Talk about adding fuel to the fire. Here's where it gets really interesting. Could this incident be connected to all the drama going on with the Storm? I mean, think about it. The team's dealing with this huge investigation, players are on edge, and now they're getting called out by a rookie. That's got to sting. But let's talk about Clark for a sec. This girl's been handling the WNBA transition like a champ. No complaints, no drama, just balling out. It's like she's in her own world, focused on dominating the court while everyone else is caught up in the storm. Pun totally intended. You know what's crazy? This whole thing might say more about the Storm than it does about Clark. Think about it. A team that's supposedly dealing with harassment and bullying issues suddenly can't handle a little trash talk? It's like all their frustration and stress just exploded on the court. So now we're all wondering, is this just the tip of the iceberg? Are we going to see more of the Storm's internal issues spilling out during games? And how will other teams react now that they know the Storm might be a little sensitive? This season's about to get a whole lot more interesting, and I can't wait to see what happens next. So, the Storm's in some seriously choppy waters, and it's not just their game that's sinking. This investigation is like a tidal wave hitting the team, and everyone's trying to stay afloat. You've got players looking over their shoulders, coaches under fire, and a whole lot of questions that need answers. What's next for this team? Rebuilding trust isn't like fixing a broken play. It takes time, effort, and a whole lot of honesty. The Storm might need to clean house, bring in new leadership, or completely overhaul their team culture. And let's be real, that's not going to happen overnight. But here's the big question. How's this going to change the WNBA? This isn't just about one team anymore. It's about player safety, team culture, and the future of the league. Are we going to see stricter policies, more oversight? The ripple effects from this storm could reshape the entire WNBA landscape. Buckle up, basketball fans. This story's far from over.